Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, as the case may be, with regards to those that may be attending today's webinar between Veeam and Pure Storage. Today's topic of discussion will be Veeam Pure Storage integration using the Universal Storage API. A number of the areas we'll be covering today will be a combination of Veeam and Pure as it's relevant to the ecosystem from a hybrid cloud context. There's a lot of activity being driven in the marketplace between Veeam and Pure Storage in terms of an alliance relationship. And today's webinar is about taking you through the high level through to the detailed level of what that looks like, from architecture, value proposition, use cases, as well as a deep dive on all of the important aspects between Veeam and Pure Storage with regards to its integration. My name's Nathan Steiner and I head up the Systems Engineering Group for Veeam Australia New Zealand. We'll also have joining us today Troy Wright, who's a Systems Engineer for Pure Storage, as well as Dilupa Ranantunga, who's a Systems Engineer for Veeam Australia New Zealand. Before we get underway, just a couple of housekeeping rules. We will be having a question and answers segment at the end of the presentation. We will be monitoring the chat and the polls. So again, please feel free to forward through the questions online and we'll filter those and get to those at the end of the webinar. So as we get started, there's lots of synergy in the marketplace. Just giving a quick check, guys, with regards to the screen. Just making sure we can move through the slides. So today, just to move through it very, very quickly, we're going to cover off the Veeam and Pure ecosystem as we go to market now with a very solid hybrid cloud architecture to meet both an availability platform for multi and hybrid cloud. There's a very strong value proposition that's being built, from the ground up when it comes to our Veeam and Pure technical integration. I'm going to take you briefly through that Veeam and Pure ecosystem and allow you, whether your customers, partners, service providers, allow you to talk through what those value props are, the use cases they address, and how they align to a Veeam architecture within a customer and or service provider landscape. I'll hand over to Troy and he'll talk about all of the fundamentals, vision, strategy, integration deep dive when it comes to the Pure Storage, FlashArray and FlashBlade stack and cover that off. We'll then hand over to Dilupa, who will cover off the API integration and focus on all of the core value props when it comes to rapid backup, rapid data leverage, rapid restore advantages when you leverage Veeam and Pure together. And then we'll drive into a Q&A scenario. As we move slides, why Pure and Veeam? This year has represented more than any other a very big focus, driven a lot by our customers, but also our top strategy across both vendors in alignment with a Pure and Veeam strategy. There's many synergies to be taken from the Pure Veeam relationship when we look at where we are within market. And just to provide you with a top 4 of what they entail, we're both market leading in respective segments. We're both fastest growing in our markets. We both have a maniacal customer-centric focus, not just with our product strategy, but the way in which our sales, pre-sales, marketing, as well as post-sale services support market in addressing a customer-centric approach. We'll talk a little bit through our NPS scores and how close they are and, what drives that. We also have now tight technical integration to provide flexible, modularized hybrid cloud solutions to meet our joint customer requirements. When we look at that from a technical perspective, Pure integration with Veeam and Pure is all about three core use cases: the ability to do rapid backup, rapid restore, and rapid data leverage. I think when we look at stages of intelligent data management, backup is a first phase. It's a lay down there in terms of meeting a customer's expectations. Where the true value then becomes is when you look at the more detailed use case scenarios, is how quickly you're able to restore data intelligently, irrespective of where it's residing. Data leverage is about expanding the use cases of the leverage of infrastructure and appliances when it comes to the flash array and the flash blade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly take you through an overview of a Veeam Pure ecosystem and how it aligns to an architecture and a solution that we see a lot of our customers asking us for and delivering, with being able to intelligently meet their requirements of protecting, managing, and making recoverable their data, irrespective of where it resides. As we look at some of the drivers of digital transformation nowadays, we have lots of unstructured data, structured line of business applications that sit on a myriad of application architectures as well as cloud ecosystems. When you look at the ability to drive a highly available, highly resilient, highly optimized management capability, you want to be doing that consistently and in a standardized way, irrespective of where the application systems and services reside. With a Veeam Pure ecosystem, you're able to do that. And I'll just take you through very briefly. If we look at the first and primary use case, that an architectural scenario that drives out a lot of our customers, it still is with the on-prem private cloud context. And so here, when you look at the Veeam Pure integration, combining with the snapshot-based approach, storage snapshot-based integration, leveraging the flash arrays, you're able to, and we'll talk through the detail, you're able to leverage much tighter recovery point objectives because of the underlying integration. For the primary data center or primary on-prem use case, that becomes the first phase of being able to roll out a solid solution, with being able to protect, manage, and make recoverable all of your core mission critical line of business applications, as well as your structured and unstructured data repositories. When you then combine that with a flash blade to act as the landing zone, we're going to talk about a lot of the use cases beyond pure backup that drives the value in having a flash blade act as a repository. Again, being able to deliver not just the lowest RTOs possible with rapid restore capabilities because of the integration, but also the additional use cases that you can get out of leveraging that hardware. And again, being all flash and high performing, we're going to talk about some of the use cases around being able to spin up and drive analytics of your production mission critical applications, but not impacting your production systems. And so again, being able to drive a lower total cost of ownership, but also address and meet line of business needs with spinning up environments, again, connecting them into core line of business applications to do testing, platforming, risk mitigation activities, as well as your cloud-based services and applications that you may want to run analytics against. So if we go on to the next slide, we look at the on-prem use case. That's what the architectural footprint looks like from a Veeam Pure perspective. We'll then just build it out as we go over the webinar. We take our time. Okay, here we go. We've got a full ecosystem here that we'll talk to. So we have our primary site. We then move on to the secondary data center. And again, when you're looking at reference architecture and you're looking at building a like-for-like, highly resilient, highly available solution that meets all of the functional and non-functional requirements that you're looking for in an architecture, your DR site then becomes a mirror of your primary. So all of the use cases that you need to address with your core mission critical line of business applications in your primary on-prem DC, you're then able to build and scale out in a mirrored fashion within your DR site. When you underline, again, an all-in-one single pane of glass to have replication functionality built in, you've got the ability to orchestrate, automate, and replicate and mirror a core architecture that's based off your primary site. So again, all of the features and the functions and the use cases you are able to address with a tightly integrated data protection solution with the flash array combined with the flash blade as your landing zone, you're able to deliver that in your secondary DR site. So again, you go with the 3-2-1 philosophy, being able to have 3 different copies across 2 different mediums, one of which is offsite, allows you to run a highly available, highly resilient, well-managed and well-protected, and most importantly, well-recoverable solution across your private and secondary data centers. Add into that the hybrid cloud scenario and the hybrid cloud requirement, then you've got the ability of that cloud to either be a managed cloud service provider and or public cloud. So again, driving your medium or even longer term retention requirements around intelligently storing data, as well as protecting and managing mission critical application workloads. You've then got the ability to seamlessly combine through Veeam Cloud Connect the ability of offsite options. So again, effectively meeting your hybrid cloud solution requirements for your customers and or service providers. Some of the granular capabilities that you get, not just with the Veeam Pure Storage integration, but then also being able to leverage all of the value add capabilities and functions that Veeam provides out of the box in its core Veeam backup and replication platform, which is, again, being able to have a highly resilient with lower RTOs of granular restore capabilities. Our Veeam Explorer tool sets for AD, Exchange, SharePoint, SQL, and Oracle gives you a very granular capability to be doing mail, object, file, and data-based restores to a very granular and very fast layer. As we cover off that Veeam Pure ecosystem, I'll now hand over to Troy Wright, who's the systems engineer for Pure Storage, to again now take you through the more detailed layers of Pure, their vision, their strategy, and again, a more detailed look at their storage technology. Over to you, Troy.
Thanks, Nathan. All right, so for those not familiar with Pure Storage, we're basically built off of 3 pillars that the company, the first pillar is really built around our technology. Our technology consists of 2 products. They're both built off of flash technology, and they're addressing different business cases. In terms of their penetration into the market, as you can see, Gartner's put us in the top right-hand corner of the flash quadrant for the last 5 years. So we're actually growing quite quickly. You've probably seen, if you're not a current user of the technology, you've probably seen it or heard about us out in the market. It's complemented by our evergreen business model, and that business model's designed around buy once and use for a long term to lower the TCO, and that's called evergreen in there, where we sell capacity once and we maintain through a subscription process over the forward years in there. When we combine both the business model and the technology with our support and our customer experience, it really leads to our Net Promoter Score, which is something that's common between Veeam and Pure, is the customer experience is quite high. The simplicity of the technologies, the fact that both technologies do what they say they do on the packet is really driving the adoption rate. So I want to go to the next slide. So our technology is built up of two products. Just wait for Delupa to hit the key. The first one, which is the bigger install base globally for us, is our flash array. Now we're several generations in. What you can see on the screen at the moment is our current generation flash array X. This product is a full NVMe flash array. So NVMe is the technology that's replacing SSDs within there. The flash array X allows us to have significant density within a customer environment. So we can put a petabyte of data into a 3-rack unit appliance with sub-millisecond latency on that workload. The product allows us to do multi-protocol to be able to handle various workloads, but particularly of interest for our customers is the availability. We're non-disruptive everything, parts replacements, upgrades, growth, and that's availability through generational changes as well. The flash array is probably the product that you'll see connected to most environments that run virtualization, VMware, OpenStack, Hyper-V, but we're increasingly seeing it used in heavy consolidated customer environments. So if we go to the next slide, the second product in our technology stack is the FlashBlade. Now, FlashBlade was originally built as an analytics platform. So the initial market target was looking at Mode 2 type workloads with unstructured data. So heavy BI workloads in there. What we're finding though is the deployment is growing rapidly around the concept of rapid restore in there. Being an all-flash technology with large bandwidth capabilities gives us the ability to recover applications through data protection products such as Veeam extremely aggressively. Huge bandwidth allows it to restore back to the primary storage significantly faster than any of the other data protection appliances out on the market that are either disk-based or tape-based or potentially cloud-based. So there's this market segment that's being evolved around that middle term rapid recovery time period, and that could be back from instant backup and continuous backup recovery over the first hours to weeks and days in there. So when you think of spinning up a rapid restore that would come up off of the protection appliance, that will be coming up off of a flash target such as FlashBlade and a recovery point with massive bandwidth coming back through to the primary storage. So if we flick to the next slide, we actually put the two products together to build an ecosystem that allows us into a converged solution. So we have a concept of integrated solutions of converged infrastructure called FlashStack. This is the convergence of Cisco compute and network in with Pure Storage systems. So we can actually produce a full customer's data center infrastructure through a single appliance. And this appliance has validated designs around using different hypervisors, different applications, and also with application integration such as the Veeam data protection product that we can deploy a single appliance and a data protection strategy around that. If we roll on to the next slide, when we combine all this together, we see that the Pure ecosystem allows a evergreen delivery model, but in particular, if we look in the top right-hand corner of this slide, we see an open automation capability of our technology stack. We're driven by REST APIs, which allows products such as Veeam to execute against our snapshotting technology, our snapshot offloading technology, and also integration into our FlashBlade as a backup repository. And this is one of the reasons why our integration with Veeam has actually been leveraged off the universal adapter. And that's probably why most people are jumping on the call is to dig into that. So we'll jump forward into the slides and we'll show you how that integration actually looks. So if you want to move forward. The recently under Veeam 9.5 update 3, the universal adapter has been released. As you can see, we're talking about integration for vSphere deployed environments. The Pure Storage plugin for Veeam is a downloadable plugin. It's a separate download page, but integrates into that update 3 or newer versions into there. Now, one of the benefits of being a separate plugin is Pure's software release cycle is quite aggressive. Our integration with our capabilities is continuously evolving. So having a separate plugin means that we can iterate our integration and capabilities quite aggressively. If you look at legacy methods of software integration with infrastructure, it typically required a large software release update to be able to leverage new features and functions. The combination of the universal adapter from Veeam, allowing it to iterate independently of this backup software, and the Pure plugin iterating in its own cycle as features are released, means that the time to market for new features is going to be at or close to release date. So if we go to the next slide, excuse me. In terms of the systems that we support, even though this capability is fairly new, being a API-driven appliance, we've been able to retrofit the integration into all our legacy systems, ranging from our quite old 400 series through the full M series and the FlashArray X series, even back to previous Purity versions of 4.8. So pretty much over 98% of our customer base will be instantly able to leverage this, the plugin from Pure into Veeam. So from day one, supportability is there. So I'm going to hand over to Delupa to actually walk through the steps of the integration of the plugin and how it actually runs on the system. So over to you, Delupa.
All righty, thanks, Troy. Yeah, so API integration, you probably ask why we need the storage integration. So this couple of challenges we're trying to address, we're trying to overcome with this API integration. So if you look at the standard Veeam VMS snapshot-based backup, we leverage the VMS storage API to do the backups. To be able to leverage this API, we need to take a VMS snapshot. So when we take the snapshots, most of the workloads like your normal Windows or Linux workloads, you won't see any issues. But with your highly transactional applications like SQL, Oracle databases, you may see some performance issues or maybe potential VM stunts, especially when you're trying to clean the VMS snapshots. So how we trying to address this with the integration is we're trying to reduce the VM snapshot lifetime. We still take a VMS snapshot to be able to use the vSphere API, but then we talk to the storage, we talk to the Pure FlashArray through the API, and then we take a volume snapshot. Then once we have the FlashArray snapshot in place, we remove the VMS snapshot and then we can use the storage snapshot as our source for backups. The really cool thing about using the vSphere or the Pure API storage snapshot is we can leverage the VMware change block tracking. That means rapid backup. We can back up very quickly. We don't need to scan the whole volume. We have the change block tracking information. We can quickly go and access the blocks that we need to back up. So let's go through the integration. So first thing we need to do, we need to download the plugin. Again, as Troy mentioned, it's a separate plugin. It's not part of the Veeam the installation file, so you need to log into the Veeam website, use your normal credentials, and then go to the download section. And then you should be able to see the Pure Storage plugin. The requirements, again, Purity 4.8 or later. From Veeam side, you need to have Veeam backup for Veeam backup and replication 9.5 update 3 or later. Once you download the plugin, it's pretty straightforward installation. If you're running a Pure Storage, iSCSI storage, iSCSI protocols, make sure you turn on. Make sure you enable the iSCSI initiator services in your Veeam proxies to be able to access the storage. So once you enable the iSCSI initiator services, Veeam will take care of establishing a connection between your Pure Storage and Veeam proxies. So it's very straightforward when it comes to iSCSI. And if it's a fiber channel protocol, then you probably need to zone the proxies and give access to your volumes inside your Pure Flash array. So plugin installation or install the plugin, it's very straightforward. Just next, and within 3 minutes, you can install the plugin. Once you install the plugin inside your Veeam backup and replication server, go to open the Veeam console, and then go to the the storage infrastructure section. Under the infrastructure section, click on the add storage button. Then you should be able to see the Pure Storage section. Select the Pure Storage, add Pure Storage Flash Array button, and then it'll ask you to give the DNS name or the IP address of your Pure Flash Array. We have added the DNS name. Then it'll ask the Pure username and the password to be able to access the Pure Flash Array. So we use the port 443 to access your Flash Array. When you go to the next section, it will ask you to choose the protocols that you use. If you are using a fiber channel, select the fiber channel. In our case, we're using iSCSI, so I have only turned on the iSCSI option. Then you have the option to choose which volumes that Veeam can scan. Veeam can simply orchestrate the snapshot, use that snapshot capable to do the backup. And then also, if you have multiple Veeam backup proxies, you can select proxies to be able to leverage this snapshot backup capabilities. Once it's done, we're pretty much ready to configure a backup job. So before you go to before you configure a backup, go to the backup infrastructure again, and they should be able to see the Pure Storage Flash Array under the storage infrastructure, and you should be able to see all the volumes inside your Pure Flash Array, and also the snapshot that you have created before you add to the Veeam server. Okay, so first thing, we're going to talk about the rapid backup through your Pure Flash storage snapshots. Let's go through the workflow first, and then I'll take you through the configuration steps. So we support ESXi, we support vCloud Director to be able to use the Pure snapshot-based backups. So what I got here, a Pure Flash Array connected to my ESXi or VMware infrastructure, and then I have a backup server. So first thing we do, we request a VMS snapshot. If it's a SQL database, if it's a application that you need to do guest processing, if you need to do application consistent backup, we can do the VSS. We talk to the VSS providers, tag the application consistent snapshot. So again, this is all agentless, so which is a very a big advantage, especially with the security concerns, especially management overhead. So you don't need to deploy any agents inside your guest VMs. Then we take a VMS snapshot. Once we have the VMS snapshot, we can get the change block tracking information. So we have the VMS snapshot, we talk to the Pure Flash array through the API, and then we take the whole volume snapshot as the next step. Once we have the storage snapshot, we remove the VMS snapshot. So VMS snapshot only lasts for a few seconds. Then we simply use a proxy which can access a storage snapshot and then capture. We access the blocks that we need to back up and then store that backup files in a repository. We can GGL, we can compress the data. If you like, we can encrypt the data as well before we storing the data in our Veeam repository. So this is the workflow, and let's go through the steps. So it's very similar. If you're a Veeam user, very similar to how you normally create a backup job. So if you go to the storage section, when you create a backup and click on that advanced button, and then you just need to make sure you have enabled the backup from storage snapshot option. So there are a couple options available now. By default, if you turned on the mobile backup from storage snapshot, we will try to back up if within that job, if you have multiple VMs, we'll try to back up all the VMs with the single storage snapshot. Sometimes you want to limit that VM count per storage snapshot, so you can turn on the second option, which you can limit. By default, we recommend use 10, but again, depends on the environment. You probably need to increase. You may need to decrease the number of VMs per storage snapshot that we're going to process. And also the last step is you can fail over to the standard VMware backup if this storage integration based backups won't work. So yeah, it's a good idea. It's also, I would normally turn on that as well, because I want to back up even using a stored normal VMware based backup if just in case the API level backup fails. So how do I know if it's using the storage snapshot for my backups? There are a couple of things you can look at. So you can go to the backup job, select a VM that you're backing up. You should be able to see that Veeam is creating a VMS snapshot. And then also it'll remove the snapshot within 10-15 seconds. So that's the first sign that you can see that whether it's using the storage snapshot. And then the next section or next sort of step is you should be able to see using backup proxies with this transport mode. So if you're not using a storage snapshot integration, you should see a hot-add mode or an NDB, which is the network mode, or the direct SAN access mode. But if the storage snapshot API integration is working, and if it's using that snapshot for backups, you should be able to see accessing data from a storage snapshot. Okay, so that's the backup from storage snapshot. And also the really nice thing about this new API integration is you can actually schedule, you can orchestrate Pure Storage snapshot through your Veeam console. Let's take a look at how you can configure a snapshot only backups. So in this example, what I'm doing is I'm doing nightly backup and store my backups outside of my production Pure Flash array. But during the day, I'm taking application consistent Pure Storage snapshots every hour and then store inside the same Pure Flash array if I want to recover something pretty quickly. This is again for rapid restores, rapid backups, rapid restores. You can restore your items, your application data, your files pretty quickly back to your production environment. How do I enable these snapshots only backups? Again, very similar to how you configure a normal backup job, but when you go to the storage section and once you integrate with your Pure Flash array through the API, you should see a new repository start appearing under your backup repository section. So choose the Pure Storage snapshot repository. This is a so you don't need to configure anything. Once you integrate with Pure Flash array, you should be able to see this repository repository listed under your backup repository section, and then you can specify the number of restore points you like to keep. Then if you go to the schedule section, you can choose how often you like to do the storage snapshot based backups or just snapshot only backup. So in this example, I'm taking periodically snapshot only backups every 15 minutes, and you can even go into more sort of like specify the time period. So my production hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So during that time, I'm taking storage snapshot based backup, storage snapshots only backup every 15 minutes. So you can permit within this window, just take 15 minutes snapshot only backup and store inside my same Pure Flash array. So that's how you create or enable snapshot only backup. Let's go to the rapid restore section. So backup, so we want to recover data if something goes wrong. So we really want to reduce that RTOs, the time it takes to restore something back to my production environment. That's this integration again, all about rapid restores. So apart from in addition to your normal restore options that are available, your instant VM recovery, full VM recovery, guest file recovery, application or VM file recoveries, you can leverage Veeam Explorers, especially Veeam Explorer for storage snapshot with this integration. So you can simply restore a full VM, instant VM recovery, guest files, or application items either from a backup file or from a pure flash snapshot. So I'm not going to go through the normal sort of standard restore option, but I'm going to talk about especially the storage Veeam Explorer for storage snapshots. So we use your familiar Explorer family to restore application items directly from a pure flash array snapshot. So what's the benefit? You don't simply go to the Veeam console, go to the storage snapshot section, right click, and then you should be able to see. So I got a few screenshots here. So choose the volume that your VM is sitting in, and then simply expand the snapshot. Then you should be able to see all the VMs inside that particular snapshot. And then simply select the VM, right click on the VM, and you should be able to see all the restore options. So you can do instant VM recovery, you can do file level restores, especially Windows and Linux. And also you can do application item level restores using a storage snapshot. Okay, so the last section of the demo is on-demand labs, or we call it now data labs, because there's so many new use cases that we introduced recently. So some of you may be using Sure Backups today. If you're a Veeam customer, we highly encourage people to use Sure Backup is to verify your data recoverability, to make sure your backup files are problem-free. We use the same technology, same sort of architecture to build a test DevOps environment in your production environment. So in the past, we were using a backup file to build this test dev environment. The problem that we had most of the time, your backup storage doesn't have the same IOPS, same performance like your production storage. So if you compare the performance with your production environment and the sandbox environment, it's not the same. So you probably have less performance, and then you have some performance issues when you create a sandbox environment using a backup file. But with this new API integration, now we can leverage a storage snapshot to build a sandbox, on-demand sandbox, to test my new patches, updates, to build a test environment for your SQL DBAs, or to train your new employees. So this is called Data Lab. Through the workflow first, and then I'll show you how to configure the Data Labs. So the Data Labs, with this new API integration, we are using a storage snapshot. So you get the same production-like performance because we're using the snapshot, and these snapshots are inside your Pure Flash array. So you get the same production-like performance with this new data labs. So we spin up a isolated fenced-off environment. Inside this fenced-off environment, you can define which application, what are the dependencies inside these application groups, and then we can do verification. So if you're just taking snapshot only, pure storage snapshots only backup, you can verify those snapshot-based backup to make sure your backups are in good shape, even though they're just storage snapshot-based. And the really good thing is when we take the storage snapshot, we can turn on the guest processing. That means the application aware components. We take care of make the application consistent backup, make sure that we take the application consistent backups with our storage snapshot only backups. So that's the virtual labs. How to configure this virtual lab? It's very simple. First thing we need to do, go to the Veeam console, go to the show backup section. So most of you familiar with the show backup. When you configure your application groups, by the way, application groups is we define, we tell Veeam these are the dependencies when I want to spin up VMs inside my test dev environment. So with this new integration, you can see when you're trying to add VMs, there's a new section, you can see from storage snapshot. So choose the from storage snapshot that time we will be using. We will show you all the available snapshots that you can use to build this on-demand sandbox. So before I hand over back to Nathan, what's the value? Why we need the storage API level integration? What are the advantages, the value that joint Veeam and Pure customers are gaining out of this integration is about, again, rapid backups, rapid restores. So if I go into the detail, the Flash Array snapshot, it's an end-to-end integration and reduce the impact when you take the backup so that you can take backups more often, even during the production hours with very little impact to your production environment. With technologies like instant VM recovery and having a FlashBlade as a backend repository, we can bring down the RTOs so that the downtime, the disruption to your business is very little. And also, we provide a complete solution, not just backup, we can provide the replication and also archival capabilities to this integration. And with the Explorer series, we provide rapid restores, not just full VM, not just file recovery, but also the application item recoveries. Last but not least, you can leverage the Veeam data labs to build a test dev environment. You can do security forensic analysis. You can do stage restores. There's quite a few new features that we are planning to release in our next release as well. So having something like a FlashBlade as a backend repository, especially as your landing zone, will give you a number of advantages of using a standard backup repository. So with that, I'm going to hand over back to Nathan to wrap up. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Dilupa. If you could just cut over to the Veeam availability platform. So we've heard from Troy, we've heard from myself, and we've heard from Dilupa around the value proposition and the integration and just how easy it is to provide a single pane of glass when it comes to being able to intelligently manage, protect and recover, and what all of the benefits are when you go from the ground up in terms of leveraging your storage technology that's all flash, in integrating that, leveraging an API-based approach. You heard Troy talk about, again, Pure Storage's approach that's API-driven. What underpins not just our integration with Pure, but in combination with Pure's strategy around universal APIs. What underpins our strategy is also universal APIs. And when we talk about hypervisor integration across Nutanix, vSphere, and Hyper-V, when we talk about our API integration and approach to our Pure Storage, Flash Array and FlashBlade integration, when we look at our ability to automate and orchestrate and intelligently manage data, irrespective of where it resides, be it private cloud, managed cloud, public cloud. We start looking at the edge now in the Internet of Things, and I'll just briefly touch upon, the relevance of, being able to integrate the baseline platforms that underpin edge and IoT, as well as SaaS. So when we look at our foray, and as we go into, protecting and managing customers' data that's part of an Office 365 implementation, our tool sets now also provide the ability to manage and protect data within the Office 365 landscape, Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive for Business. Again, that's an API-driven approach with being able to put control of customers' data back in their hands, so that when you start looking at all of those additional use cases that's driving the value of Pure Storage implementations and why they're being so successful in the customer landscape in combination with Veeam, it's all about the data management platforms. When we look at what customers are asking us to drive, and what businesses, when we sit in front of business stakeholders, a big part of what's driving the success of Veeam and Pure is around the new digital workloads and the use cases that are coming with that. When we look at the data fabric that the Pure Storage flash arrays combine, we start looking, again, moving from what are typically and historically batch-driven requirements around processing, and looking at, how we scale with batch-driven processing into real-time analytics, insights, simulations is what is really driving private, managed, and public cloud workload systems. Being able to transform your historical and legacy data management platforms that combine storage and data protection is, again, some of the things that we focused on today in terms of the rapid backup, the rapid restore, and the rapid data leverage. What ties in rapid backup and rapid restore is the rapid data leverage, particularly with those new digital workloads that's being driven by our customers. Large, highly scalable, distributed, unstructured, either object, file, or block-based relational or distributed database systems. You need to be able to drive very high simulations and very, very exponential simulation processes. The ability to leverage what you've already captured as your production environment as part of a backup lake, to be able to analyze and drive high performing simulations and move from batch driven to real time, is where you start to see the real value of the Veeam Pure solution. Because again, a lot of customers ask, well, why change? Why transform? And fundamentally, it's around what underpins those core platforms. When you look at, Veeam's, along with what you saw from Troy around their vision and strategy, again, providing an availability platform that has built-in intelligent automation. Again, something that has the ability to anticipate need around real time versus batch driven in a secure way, and meet the demands of being able to protect, manage, and make recoverable your data, your applications, and your systems in a very resilient way, whether it's cloud, software as a service, or even physical endpoints, being AIX, Solaris, Linux, or Windows-based flavors of that. Having the single pane of glass, you saw as part of the Pure vision and strategy, the Pure One around the actionable insights and the real-time monitoring. Visibility is a core part of their vision and strategy, as is Veeam's. So where Pure have Pure One, Veeam to intelligently manage the data, the backups that it's got control over, we have the Veeam One. So again, there's a lot of synergy there, both from a vision and strategy perspective and how they interrelate from an overall architecture. That's enough from me. Hopefully it's given you enough, not just from a vision and strategy perspective, but also the use cases, as well as the deeper layers of the integration that will now allow for anyone on the webinar to have questions. So Troy, DeLupa, or myself. Wow, I think we covered all there is to cover off when we talk about Veeam and Pure Storage integration. Again, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that took the time out for the webinar, on behalf of Troy and Delupa, I do thank you for spending the time. I hope it was valuable to you. Again, we have territory-based, channel-based SEs and solution architects across Veeam and Pure that are intimately across the integration, the solutions, how to make it all work. So I encourage you to either reach out to Troy, myself, and or Delupa, as well as your local pre-sales resources across the two organizations. This will be the first of many as we start to drive out not just a uplift in knowledge around the integration and the solutions, but also continue to drive out, again, the referenceability and start to focus on some webinars and some collateral that we deliver to our channel partner and end user ecosystem that drives out the value of Veeam and Pure solutions, the use cases that our customers are deriving value from in combination with the two technologies and platforms. And once again, I thank you for your time. Thank you, Delupa. Thank you, Troy.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, guys.